Hey everyone, in your science fiction game for Savage Worlds, you're probably going to need hacking. I mean, hacking is important, and hacking is even a core skill in the game. So you're going to want to use it. You're going to have a mechanism for handling it. And in Savage Worlds, I've found there's many ways to do it. Lots of people have come up with ways. So I'm going to talk about 4 ways that people have come up with in Savage Worlds to do hacking. Savage Worlds, one of the best games today. Hey, everyone, it's Carl with Tabletop Tango. Again, look at the bubbles, do the stuff. Please like, please subscribe, especially subscribe. They're kind of like that. And so it'd be nice to go up some more and just, if you watch them and you appreciate them, just subscribe. You don't have to watch everyone. So anyway, what am I talking about? So I'm talking about hacking in Savage Worlds, the role-playing game. So hacking would seem like that's a pretty straightforward thing. There's a hacking skill, but it's got a lot of nuances. Do you just, when the player's trying to do something in a system, just roll hacking and they succeed or they fail? Do you have multiple stages where they first got to infiltrate and then they got to do something else and then they do the third thing? There's always been kind of a question as to what's the best way of handling hacking. And so I have 4 ways from 4 different books and systems that handle hacking in slightly different ways that I thought I would do sort of an overview of each of them. And then you can decide if one of those ideas matches more what you want to do in your campaign. And then you can pick up that book. So let's start with the Science Fiction Companion, right from Pinnacle. Science Fiction Companion doesn't have a lot to talk about because it takes advantage of the core system of dramatic tasks. So dramatic tasks, as we know, are multi-stage, multi-round, where you're trying to get tokens to drive success. So in a Science Fiction Companion, it says, hey, hacking is a dramatic task. It talks about, there's a table that talks about the level of the system you're trying to attack, how challenging it is, and what the penalty is to your rolls. And so something with light security, for example, would be a challenging dramatic task at a -2 penalty on rolls. They also have a little bit of extra information on if you're doing the Netrunner feel, like you're actually going into cyberspace, as a persona, and it talks a little bit about that as well. But the core mechanic is a dramatic task, simple as that. So number 2 is a swag book called Sprawlrunners. And Sprawlrunners is very popular. It's got a Shadowrun feel, the way it's been presented and the kind of the rules it has. And so Sprawlrunners has 2 sets of hacking. One it calls a slow burn and one it calls fast burn. Slow burn is much more where you'd have a subset of mechanics or a sub-rule set. It goes into detail. You walk through a lot of things. It's more like, again, a mini game within your overall game. I'm not going to dig too deep into that one because I want to talk more about the basic hacking type rules that you'd find. And so we're talking about the fast burn then. In the fast burn, it's similar to a dramatic task, so it's not all that different, but it takes and it codifies that there are 5 steps. And to go through those 5 steps, you need to get 5 tokens, what they call task tokens. So it's like a dramatic task with multiple stages. And so for each step, you draw a card. A club represents a complication, and so the roll is at an additional penalty. And then you're going to have complications that are part of that. For example, one of the complications for breaking into a system would be a barrier ice blocks the way. If the operator fails to roll, the system goes on alert. And if they critically fail, the system goes on high alert. Alert and high alert are penalties that are applied to the roll. They have a table that shows the penalty based on system, the penalty based on alert or high alert, and then the bonus you might get for having a password or something like that. So there's 5 stages: breaking in, avoiding security, navigating the system, locating the pay data and manipulating the system, and then getting out. And so for each of these stages, you're making rolls and you're trying to get 5 tokens. So you notice there's 5 stages, 5 tokens. So if you get 5 successes, that's a basic success. You found the data, you planted the thing you wanted in the system. If you fail, then you fail at any stage you fail and you don't get enough tokens. That's basically a failure. Bad things happen. The data you get is maybe wrong or something along those lines, or the modifications didn't hold if you tried to put a virus or something in the system. You get more than 5, you get bonuses to what you got, maybe more valuable data, maybe some intel that you needed. But the basics of it is there's 5 stages. Each stage may have complications if you get a club when you're drawing a card for each one of the stages, and you try to have 5 successes or more to do the job that you're trying to do. Third is Interface 0. Now, Interface 0 is interesting because I ran an Interface 0 2.0 game, and that was back with the previous edition of Savage Worlds. And the hacking system was really kind of complicated. It was difficult to really grok somehow. And they, in Interface 0, Gunmetal Games, really simplified it, really took the Fast, Furious, and Fun to heart. So what they introduced was extremely streamlined. And so it's a 3-step process. So there's hack the system, there's manipulate the system, and then there's logging out. And so that's the basics. They also have what they call plugins, which are what I'd call setting rules for hacking that add things or modify things to really flavor it the way you want. So it can be more like a dramatic task. It can be much more deadly. It can have systems that are going to cause damage to you, like black systems. So it really is tailorable how complicated you want it or how it works for your kind of world that you're building. So let's talk a little bit about it though. So hacking a system, this is a single roll, or it can be dramatic task if you're using that plugin. The penalty is based on the tier of the system, and so they have tier 1 through tier 5, where tier 5 is a -8 penalty, and tier 1 has no penalty. And then that's a single roll. Then there's a step 2, which is manipulate the system. So it breaks down very granular to tasks you can do. So it's very prescriptive. So there's 11 different actions that you can do. And these include things like create backdoors, edit files, get data, operate equipment that might be hooked up to that system. In the Interface 0.3 world, almost everybody has these things in their heads called taps. And almost everything can be remote controlled, and like you can affect cameras and hack into cameras and do things. And so there's a lot of stuff you can do there. That's part of the setting that the book brings to the table. So then finally logging out. This is a standard logout if you do a standard logout or a secure logout. So in a standard logout, you just log out, you don't roll, but the security people have a chance of do a notice roll to see if you're there. Secure logout takes more time, takes a hacking roll, and if you fail that hacking roll, then they may notice it. But if you don't, then you got clean out of the system and nobody noticed you. So that's Interface 0.3, a little more prescriptive on some of the things you can do and specifically what skills required to do that, but overall pretty good. And then the last one is the one that I presented in my video, Keep Hacking Simple. I think that was the title. This one is got more a feel like Interface 0.3 in the sense that I only have 3 steps. Gain access, retrieve information or affect the system, and then exit the system. And then I have limited levels. So you have like a corporate network, which might be a -2. A military network might be a -6. You might get bonuses based on if you know something or you've done some, somebody used networking to do some social engineering. So you might get a +1 for having some extra information about the network, what have you. But it's really 3 steps. And so the first step is, gain information or gain access. It's a hacking roll. It uses that negative. If you get in, if your gain access works, then you're in the system without any penalty. Nobody knows you're there. If you fail it, somebody knows that you were trying to get into the system and they may take action accordingly. I try to keep it more in the Game Master's purview, so I don't have that means there's an ICE system and the ICE system does this or does that, or that adds an extra penalty. It's up to the Game Master, really, in my set, because, it's all going to be based on what's happening at the time. If you're plugged into a corporate network and you fail to log in, the security might be coming after you. And so that would be something that the Game Master play out. If you're remote, the Wi-Fi might get disconnected, or they might trace you back to your access point, and then you have to decide whether you're leaving or not. So next one is retrieve information, affect the system. This one I'm even less. Based on what you're trying to do, I would pick the skill that makes sense. So if you are searching for a particular file, you might need a research role. And so Nothing says that a player cannot assist or cannot support, or you can't, if you're like at a terminal, you can't have one of your friends be the ones looking for data after you hack in. That would not be an unusual thing, right? It's not all jacked into your mind's cyberspace. It's could be anybody doing it once you're hacked into the system. And so the skill is based on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to plant a program, it might be hacking. If you're trying to plant a virus, it might be hacking. If you're trying to get data, it might be research. So it really depends. And this one I leave a lot more open to the game master because, again, keep it simple. You know, when the player says, I want to do something, pick the skill that seems to make sense. And then finally, exiting the system. This is like interface 0 in the sense that this is how clean you get out. Again, it's a single roll based on the negatives or positives you have. And if you succeed, you've gotten out of the system, you've covered your tracks, you've cleaned the log files, you know, whatever it is that you're trying to do. And if you fail, you failed. You let some trace there. It doesn't mean that you didn't get out of the system, but that means somebody might have been able to, you know, you left the log file intact. They were able to use that to trace your IP address, whatever. And so that now becomes an interesting thing in your campaign where the authorities or the corporate security now has a clue as to where you might be or who you might be. And they might be able to try to track you back to your base or track, you know, find out that you're in a van and what the Wi-Fi signature or the SSID of the van is, and all sorts of cool things can happen. And it's only because we're not overly precise in exactly what's going to happen. So fourth one, mine, simple, 3 steps, a lot more in that game master's hand, because again, I'm not publishing a book. But so there's the 4. You've got basic dramatic tasks from the science fiction companion. You have Sprawlrunners, which is a kind of dramatic task-ish type thing, but a little more stepwise, defining the stages. Interface 0, which has just a few stages, but very descriptive and prescriptive of exactly what you can do and what it needs to do. And then mine, where it's more the game master, has a lot more feel to it. 3 steps, in, out, done. So those are the 4 different hacking systems that you might find. There's probably others in swag products or in, you know, other setting books, but these are the 4 that I wanted to talk about. So once again, I'm Carl with Tabletop Tango. Look at the bubbles, do the stuff. We'd love your support, like, subscribes, all that good stuff, and we will see you in the next video. Bye. Savage World, one of the best games today.